explain all of this, Carol?
Well, you know, Don, once upon a time in Madison, if you needed to go to the hospital, it was just assumed to go to Louisville, Cincinnati, or Indianapolis. Well, that's not the case anymore. Madison not only has some of the latest high-tech equipment that you'll find in larger cities, the hospital here has insisted on keeping the personal touch. King's Daughters Hospital is considered a medium-sized facility in a small town. John Paul is benefiting from the new outpatient programs. He's diabetic, and hospital staff taught him how to monitor his blood sugar level at home. He's also found a way to travel with little inconvenience.
If you go on a trip like Madison to Louisville, we take our little insulated bag along with the ice and maybe a jar of orange juice and maybe a piece of fruit in case I would have a low sugar somewhere along the way.
He packs insulin and ice in a thermal bag because human insulin is sensitive to this hot and humid weather. Paul is part of a support group for diabetics forming at the hospital.
They talk about new recipes. They talk about easier methods of doing things. And they share with one another. And they kind of support the group in that they don't feel like they're out there alone.
One thing they discuss is meal planning, since diet is essential to keeping blood sugar under control.
Ron, does that menu need ketchup on that?
In the hospital kitchen, you'll find Peggy Webster. Her life is about to change drastically. After 23 years smoking a pack and a half a day, she intends to quit, but she doesn't expect it will be easy.
Psychologically block out that need for a cigarette and not being able to get it even if you wanted.
Peggy Webster will be among the first at a clinic sponsored by the hospital and the Cancer Society. The instructor says Peggy won't be alone.
I think that if someone needs a cigarette, that they can have someone in the group who would understand exactly what they're going through at the time, and they can contact them. So.
The reason those employees are quitting is because of a change in the Indiana state law. In September, it's going to restrict where you can smoke in public buildings. That's going to affect schools, hospitals, and where state agencies are located. Now, if you want to participate in some wellness clinics coming up, in Jefferson County, Indiana, you can get free information and tests at the 4-H fair next week. King's Daughters Hospital will provide that. In Jefferson County, Kentucky, there's a health fair this Saturday at Oxmoor Center. It's sponsored by the Louisville Institute for Heart and Lung Disease at Jewish Hospital. So you can get free health information in Jefferson County, no matter what state you're in.
You just can't go wrong with free anything.
That's right. That's true.
Usually. Thanks, Carol. Christy?
Well, insurance is that stuff that you need when you don't have it, but making sure the insurance you have is what you need can be awfully tricky sometimes. Troubleshooter Nell Taylor looks at phone line insurance, the benefits and the drawbacks, too.
That's right, Christy. You know, it's been more than a year now since South Central Bell first started its service insurance, and Indiana Bell has had it for more than 3 years, since 1984. The question is just what does it cover, and is it worth paying that $1 to $2.50 a month? The service insurance came into vogue after the FAA Wire Care Plus program, so all the telephone companies are getting into it. It is a little bit of a way for them to make some money, and if you feel more comfortable having insurance, maybe you should get it, but it really isn't that necessary.
But at least we know about it now.
That's it.
Thank you, Nell. Don?
To show you how much the history of a community like Madison can affect people, we're talking about a history professor here.
I am now.
You are now.
I talked
exactly
to Dave
right.
Taylor this afternoon. I got it all straight.
Well, let's hear it.
There's some folks going on the river there. They feel like they're really buzzing at about 40, 45
That
miles
barge
an
out
hour.
there?
But it's not 170, and that's the way it happens in July around here. Madison becomes the focal point of some big-time sports in midsummer when the Thunderbolts draw thousands, tens of thousands to the normally quiet hamlet. The Madison Regatta is the oldest race held in one town in the American Powerboat Association. Earlier today, as I mentioned, I talked with regatta historian Dave Taylor.
1911 was our first race, and since then the hydroplanes have built a following over the years. In the beginning it was just a few people in pleasure boats getting out here on the river. Over time, then a lot of people became to be involved because of the news media, and through the 30s, the Depression era, surprisingly we kept the regatta going. Not every year consecutively, but since 1949 there's been a regatta every year up through today.
Why not Louisville? Why not Cincinnati? Why not Pittsburgh? Why Madison?
Well, possibly because in a small town something like this has to be done by volunteers, and maybe in larger towns the volunteers aren't there because there are so many other things to get involved in. but in Madison we have a great group of people here who volunteer. About 250 people are involved in our regatta from year to year. And I think that really is what makes it a success story. There's a lot of self-satisfaction that you're doing something to promote your community. We like the sport, we enjoy watching the boats run, and that's a satisfaction in itself.
Those qualities are not in vogue these days, though. What about the future of this racing?
Well, I think this race is going to stay for years and years because of one thing that I mentioned, that we are unique in that we're a small town of 13,000 people that provide a major league sporting event for the people of the Midwest to come and see. We're a family-oriented event, and there's a lot of events that you can't take your kids to. And it's kind of like a picnic to come to the Madison Regatta.
The Madison Regatta is one big event. But Don, have you ever been over to Hanover College?
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the prettiest college campuses you want, and got a heck of a football program for 1,000 students or so. Wayne Perry, the head coach, will be with me when we come back a little bit later in our sports section.
You're not doing the history of football, are you?
Well, we might. Yeah, we're going to give you a recruiting talk. That's what we're going to do.
Oh, that's what I need.
Yeah, I bet you do.
I don't think Tom's going to give us a history lesson, though, in the weather here in Madison. At least we hope not, because we know it is a little bit warm. But Tom is here with a quick update. Tom.
That's true. You can see behind me the Ohio River, the side of that regatta every year, and we got a little slow-moving boat going behind us this evening, a big barge back there. But you can see the air is somewhat cleaner. On the health weather indicators, that's good news. In fact, it's going to be getting better and better as the next 2 or 3 days roll along. The temperatures, though, will stay about the same, mostly in the mid-90 category in the afternoon hours tomorrow, but the ozone should be dropping down quite a bit to the more or less safe, acceptable levels below 80 by afternoon tomorrow. If you are allergy prone, though, the recent rains and the heat now have generated quite a bit of mold spores around the area, and the weed pollens have jumped up to the moderate category as well. Forecast tonight keeps showers to our west, but just hazy, warm, and humid here in the Louisville area and up into Madison as well. 73 for the overnight low, hot and humid tomorrow, 40% chance of a thunderstorm in the afternoon. Tomorrow's high near 92.
Well, besides the heat today, there's a problem here that in Madison that involves a rail line in and around Madison. We'll have that story.
But next, the story of the newspaper here in Madison. It's been in one family for a very long time. We are live by satellite from Madison on Wave TV News.
Indiana by about 10,000 people every day. It looks like any other small town daily until you start taking a closer look at the newspaper. This newspaper is 150 years old this summer. It is still owned by the same local family, the Garber family. 3 generations of Garber men, pioneer Michael Christian Garber, Michael C. Garber Jr., and Michael E. Garber, led the Madison Courier through more than a century of local color and controversy. Current publisher Don Wallace, a Garber by marriage, remembers the stories.
Mr. Garber was stabbed right out front here, and he almost died, and it was over slavery.
It was the Garber family's strong stand against slavery that changed the political tone of the Madison Courier. Once considered Democrat in editorial position, today's Courier is conservative Republican. Now the paper employs 38 people. The company is reported to be in good financial health, and the Garber descendants appear interested in keeping it in the family. But running the town paper is not always easy.
It's always tough to take a stand on things, naturally, particularly when you live in a town, but something that sometimes you have to do, and that's part of the newspaper business, being unpopular sometimes.
Courier employees take great pride in the fact that during 150 years' worth of deadlines, they have never missed an issue. They say their paper is a good one.
Being family-owned and living here all their life, why, they take an interest in the city.
I think that we do very well for a small staff, and there are a lot of things going on, and if we miss something, people let us know about it.
Over publisher Don Wallace's desk, there is a sign that reads, "It's a newspaper's duty to print the news and raise hell." While the Wallace family members tell us they fully intend to continue doing both for another 150 years. It would seem to me that Gannett and Knight Ritter can pretty much forget about adding this newspaper, the Madison Courier, to one of their large chains.
I think you're right. Madison boasts one of the only city-owned rail lines in America, but it's a line with an uncertain future. Reporter Bob Hansen looks at the problems and challenges of running a city railroad.
Jeff Lockridge and Bill Robertson walk on the locomotive that makes up the Madison Railroad. Madison paid $307,000 for this line nearly 10 years ago. The city bought it when Penn Central said it was discontinuing service.
It was either us take the bit in our teeth and go with it and get the Port Authority started and decide to run a railroad, or else there wouldn't have been a railroad. So we decided to do it.
Besides being one of the only city-owned railroads in the country, this Madison line has another claim to fame. Officials here say this stretch here is the steepest non-cog incline in the world.
But maintaining the line isn't easy. While the track runs only 30 miles, it takes constant care.
Actually, we do track maintenance. We run equipment, doing track. We're jack of all trades.
About 55,000 tax dollars go into the rail line. Some critics say that money is not well spent.
Actually, nothing is done except that the money is appropriated, and then we hear no more about it. And that is the kind of thing which disturbs me very, very much.
We feel we've done what is necessary, and we'll continue to do what's necessary to maintain rail service. And that isn't always easy.
Finances aren't the only challenge to the rail line's future. CSX Corporation is looking at possibly pulling up its entire Indiana track. If that were to happen, Madison could own a railroad with no place to go. In Madison, Bob Hansen, Wave TV News.
If CSX does try to pull out, Madison officials say they won't take it lying down. The city attorney told us Madison would get together with cities like North Vernon and Seymour and buy the track they need to keep the railroad going. Coming up next, a story you just have to see. A man who feeds his pet fish. His pet fish is a bass. His story from Madison is next on Wave TV News. A pet fish. It doesn't roll over or fetch the paper, but Scott Patrick reports it will sit up and beg.
Say that the good Lord never took a day away from a man's life that he spent fishing. So every day you spend fishing is just an extra day.
Frank Etherton loves fishing as much as farming in Madison, Indiana. No nibbles on this pond, no problem. He's always guaranteed a strike at his other fishing hole.
There he comes. See him, boys?
Frank Etherton has a pet bass. He can't pet him, but Frank has taught the fish a trick or two, and only seeing is believing.
Come on, boy. Now, that's one, but that's not near as high as he can jump, I'll tell you.
The first look usually brings the same first impression. You've got to be kidding. For 2 years, Frank's pet bass has been showing off. A friend caught the bass in nearby water, put the fish in this pond, and one day, Frank noticed the fish was following him around the water's edge.
I got to feeding him night crawlers and fishing worms. And one day I just held one right out over the water, and he come right up to it and took it. Since then, he's been a real beggar.
You're like a bird dog. You missed that one, but he'll get it.
Well, I've always called him Big Boy. And I've had some people that tell me that it's probably a female, so it should be Big Girl, maybe.
Good. Boy, he does come out of the water for them things.
The fish is not that particular. It likes almost any worms and anything that looks like a worm. Watch. I'm just a kidder.
Let's see you do it.
Fishing poles are not allowed on this pond. Frank shudders to think of his friend in the frying pan.
Because he's given me a lot of good feelings. I'd hate awful bad to lose him. I'd hate for somebody to catch him and take him out of the pond. I'm going to let him stay here as long as I can. There's no doubt about that.
Frank Etherton and his pet bass. Perhaps the only fish story in the world that's really true. No strings attached.
There he comes. Watch him point. Now, can't you imagine when you're bass fishing and your lure's out there in the water and the fish is... Look at him. Oh, he had my finger that time.
Well, Frank believes his pet fish, Big Boy or Big Girl, whichever it is, weighs between 6 and 10 pounds. He's thinking about pulling the bass out of the water and actually weighing it. The fish shouldn't be too hard to catch, as we've just seen, for heaven's sake.
Dominic is scared away. Dominic is next to the sport.
He's going to talk with the head coach at Hanover College nearby. We are live by satellite from Madison. Wave TV News.
Bellarmine's Night Hall, and it was about 340 degrees there.
This is cool. This is really cool. To say the action was hot, both on the floor and off the floor, is putting it mildly. The Pan Am scrimmage, of course, last night at Bellarmine, with around 7 o'clock. They had about 7,000 people out there, and they tried to cram in. It got a little ugly for a while. Then about 3,500 or 4,000 of us nestled together in the heat to get a glimpse of America's best. Led by David Robinson's 35-point Superman performance, the Whites beat the Blues 94-85. Pan Am head coach Denny Crum talked to me afterward about the gems he found in that sea of early confusion.
With Pooh Richardson's ball handling skills as a guard, I thought he really made things happen when he had the ball in his hand. He has a real knack of giving the ball up at the right time to the right person, and created a lot of scoring opportunities for his teammates. I was very pleased with David Robinson. I thought he...
Coach now is down by about 10 or 12. A nice crowd of about 17,000 plus took advantage of the quarter night last night out at Cardinal Stadium. The Birds lost 3-2. That was a bummer. But got an added bonus as St. Louis Mound ace John Tudor took the hill for the first time since he broke that leg on April 19th. Now the final stats for Tudor read in 3 innings, 1 run, 4 hits, and 31...
If you've never been to Hanover, the scenery is one of the most beautiful campuses of football you're going to have. We'll take them on a tour. After the tour, we'll take them down to the office, and we're going to talk about our academic tradition and our athletic tradition. We're ranked as one of the top academic schools in the nation, and we've had 14 consecutive winning football years. So we feel that when the prospects come to campus, we can do a good job with them.
When they talk pretty campuses, they talk of Miami of Ohio, and I think Hanover ranks right in there with it. Coach, keep up the great tradition, will you?
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Wayne. That's it, guys.
All right.
We're talking Hanover here. We're talking success.
That's right.
Like Wave News.
We're going to be back right after.
I live in Hanover.
Close enough. What is the attraction? I mean, I come from Louisville, and people watching Louisville and this beautiful scenery. What is the attraction to living up here?
Oh, I think it's because it is a river town, and there's a lot of unique little shops, a lot of old buildings, old houses. They have at Christmas time a candlelight tour of homes, which is really nice, and I think it's just, a nice place to live. My daughter just got married, and she's moving to Florida, and she's kind of sad to leave here.
Do you think people who live up here just take this for granted, or do they like it?
I think so. I know it took me a long time to realize, everything Madison really has. Right. The people from out of town that pointed it out.
Let me talk to some of these kids over here. What's your name?
Aaron.
Aaron? You got a sunburn today. Where do you go to school?
Everson.
Do you? What's your name?
Sarah Eversole.
Where do you go to school, Sarah?
Lydia Milton.
How about you?
Joey Ritz.
Thanks all for coming out. Hope you had a good time. We do thank you for joining us in Madison. Let's go up to Christy.
All right. That's our report for this Thursday.